So you want to own a Jeep, but your wife doesn't approve of that because you have a family to take care of, you have a couple of kids, and the Wrangler and Gladiator is a little bit too impractical. But don't worry, because Jeep came out with a 3-row, 7-seater SUV that can satisfy both your wants and what your wife wants. This is the 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee L Limited. Let's check this very practical Jeep in this video. For the exterior of the Jeep Grand Cherokee L, Jeep went for a more premium and luxurious approach instead of the rugged appeal that you'd find with the rest of their lineup. So if you see this car, you'd immediately see just how massive it is. It's so long and it is also pretty wide, because this car actually competes against the likes of the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado as well as the Hyundai Palisade. Anyway, look at this car from the front. You have some sort of a clamshell hood. And I also love how Jeep did keep their classic grille setup that you would find in the older Grand Cherokees as well. The lighting setup, all LEDs, and over at the side of the vehicle, 20-inch rims. Wading depth is at 530 millimeters too. Now, from the side, you'll really appreciate the size of this. This being the L variant, the 3-row variant, it is just super long. It looks like a wagon on stilts. In America and some places in the world, they did release this as a non-L variant with only 2 rows, but here in the Philippines, you can only get it as a 3-row long SUV. Anyway, you'll also notice here that the front windows, including the windshield, they are factory tinted slightly green, but the rear windows, they have privacy glass, so you don't really need tint anymore if you do get this car. I also love how they kept Grand Cherokee lettering in chrome by the bottom of the door as well as around the windowsills. For the rear styling, nothing too ostentatious to it, just a classic and stately look. And you also get a powered tailgate. And over here, you'll notice that you do have a parcel cover, but it is this like very soft thing. But the advantage of that is you can easily just, well, chuck it anywhere. Now, with these 3rd row seats folded up, you have around 487 liters of space. Fold down those 3rd row seats, you have over 1,300 liters of space. And if you do fold down all your seats, you can expand that all the way to over 2,000 liters. So you can pretty much put anything you want back here, including a bed. Now we drive the Jeep Grand Cherokee L, and the first thing I want to talk about is the powertrain you get here. So what you have is a 3.6 liter big V6 engine making 282 horsepower and 344 Newton meters of torque, paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. And while it is no Hemi V8, it still is more than enough, especially for Philippine roads, and you get all that V6 rumble that we all kind of forgot about already, given the fact that we've all been getting like small displacement turbocharged engines nowadays. The 8-speed in this car, it is pretty good. It never struggles to find a gear. It knows in which ratio to put you in all the time, and even downshifts are quick, upshifts are quick. Put it into sport mode and the downshifts become just lightning quick. You hear all that V6 rumble? It sounds really good, right? Anyway, transmission aside, next thing I want to talk about is the handling of this vehicle. Despite the size of this car and the heft of it, it still handles surprisingly well. Of course, again, it's not sporty, but it never has the feeling of wanting to roll over even when you do corner this car at high speeds. Speaking of high speeds too, when you are on the highway, the advanced driver assistance systems, including the adaptive cruise control, works excellently. It's not jerky. It's a little bit too sensitive when it comes to the lane departure though, because I mean, it is a wide car and we have narrow lanes here, but for adaptive cruise control, it never really like brakes harshly when the car in front of you slows down. It still is a very smooth experience. The heads-up display also helps out a lot when you are driving on the highway, so you don't really need to take your eyes off of the road. Being a family SUV, let's first talk about the 2nd row of seats. And yes, getting in, you do have to kind of climb on up. It is pretty high. Honestly, this car could use a pair of side steps. But now that we're seated back here, let's check the door thud. Not bad. Right here at the 2nd row, you can truly utilize the size of this vehicle because space is pretty cavernous right here. So legroom is pretty amazing. Headroom, even with this panoramic sunroof, it is also pretty good. These seats are pretty comfortable too. Honestly, it could use just a little bit more thigh support, maybe an extra inch or so, but overall, not bad. You can also recline these seats and they do go pretty far back. You can also slide them forwards and backwards to give space to the people at the third row. Anyway, over here you do get so much toys. So my favorite part about this is the amount of air vents you get. So you get 2 of them here by the middle, and on each pillar, this B pillar, you also get an extra air vent right there, just like a lot of Volvos. You can also control your climate control over here. You have a household plug, you have 2 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports too, and you even have this center armrest with 2 cup holders. Just to add a little bit more of that premium effect, on the side you even have this manually adjustable sunshade to give you extra privacy over here. And if you do need to seat 3 people, this is one of the best cars to do it, because the center seat, it is still pretty good. The car is pretty wide, and the center transmission tunnel, it is also pretty low. Getting to the third row of seats is also a relatively simple process. You simply grab one handle, this entire seat assembly goes up and forwards, and now you simply climb on inside. And once you're back here, for example, these seats are down, you still have about an inch or 2 of legroom, but this is with me being only 5'6" short. However, if you kindly ask the second row seat passengers to just slide their seats a little bit forward, this is going to be more than doable for people up to maybe around 5'8", 5'9" or so, even for longer journeys. Also, you get your own USB-C port and USB-A port on either sides, and you also get your very own C-pillar mounted air vent. That is quite cool. Another cool feature about this third row is like these headrests right here. In some cars, you have to manually fold them down for the driver to be able to see when they are backing up, right? But for this one, there is a button in your infotainment screen that will electrically tumble these down. Moving now here towards the front, we check the door too. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. The cabin of the Jeep Grand Cherokee, it truly is a mix of both premium and subpar materials. We're going to be quite frank with that. And this is something we see in a lot of American cars, so this truly isn't too out of the ordinary. What do I mean? So your dashboard, that is really nice, really soft too, the materials they use for this one. On the side too, you have like these extra soft padded materials, and you even have what's called open pore wood lining the trims. But unfortunately, you get these like plastic panels right here, right? You shake that, and that shows you American craftsmanship with all of the movement and play that it gives you. It's also pretty brittle and hard sounding plastic too, and even that open pore wood thing, I'm not truly convinced that this is open pore wood. It just feels like plastic that's made to look like open pore wood. But truly, that aside, this interior is a nice place to be in. So the seats, they're very comfortable. In typical American fashion, they're also very wide. So even if you drive for like long distances or you're a little bit plus size, you're not gonna have any issues with this run right here. It's also power adjustable in a lot of ways, including lumbar support for both the driver's side and the passenger side. And for the driver's side, you even have two-way memory functions too. Speaking of memory functions, that's also linked to your power adjustable steering wheel. So up, down, tilt, and telescoping, you can all do that electrically. Now your screens in this car, you get 2 of them. In some markets, you even get a 3rd screen right here for the passenger, but here in the Philippines, it's just 2. A 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster, honestly pretty easy to read, as well as this center infotainment screen that measures 10.1 inches big. And what I love about this infotainment screen by the center is it is so responsive, and it comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto too. Plus, it has a very cool feature called FamCam. So I know that sounds a little bit weird. It's like you're surveilling on your family, but that's exactly what it does. So you click FamCam, and it shows you the 2nd row of seats as well as the 3rd row of seats, and you can even zoom in towards the particular seat you want to look at. So if the kids are getting slightly naughty there at the back, you can see them all from here. Now, moving forward, I don't know why a lot of these like Jeep products do this. So usually instead of having like steering wheel mounted volume controls, it's like here in front, right? But for all these Jeep products, they're always behind your finger. So as you grasp the steering wheel, they're right here. So volume on the right side and seek next track or previous track on the left. Really odd. So now you're gonna ask me, it has paddle shifters, right? So if you have these like button switches, how do you use your paddle shifters? They're still in their regular place, but they're only about half the size of usual. So they're just on the upper end of the steering wheel. That's how you operate them. Again, pretty weird, quirky things that Jeep does. On top, you have a huge panoramic sunroof too. And by the center, you have this like swivel wheel for your gear selector. While this one too is a little bit flimsy feeling, what I like about it is it has like a max turn thing. So once you reach park, which is the leftmost, it will not turn any further. And the same thing for drive, it won't turn any further after that. Also, if you don't step on the brake, that is locked, so you can't really turn it. Just beside that, this is your settings for your driving mode. So you have sand and mud, you have snow. Normal mode is just automatic, and then you even have a sport mode. You also get an auto hold function, and for your climate control settings, they look a little bit convoluting, but you get so much controls here, including heated steering wheel, heated and ventilated seats, and of course your regular fan speeds. Right below that, you get lots of USB ports, 2 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, and a 12-volt outlet, plus a wireless charging pad. For other features in this car, you get a 9-speaker Alpine sound system, and it is one of the best features of this car because it sounds excellent. You get 8 airbags too, and a whole suite of advanced driver assistance systems such as adaptive cruise control with stop and go, lane keeping assist, forward collision warning with pedestrian and cyclist detection, blind spot monitoring system, and all that. If in case you have passengers with ginormous heads too, blocking your view, you can simply just flip up this switch. There you go, you get a camera to see the rear. But I think the main highlight of the Jeep Grand Cherokee L is its NVH suppression and refinement. Because when it comes to noise, maybe it's with the choice of tires that they used, or maybe it's because of the active noise cancellation system being pumped out through your speakers, which is inaudible, by the way. It just is a very quiet place to be in. Aside from that V6 noise or V6 sound, it really is a very serene place to be in. Even if you're driving at high speeds, it's so quiet in here. You have big wing mirrors, but you don't hear any of the wind noise there. Tire noise barely enters in the cabin. Even if you're driving on rougher roads, it just is great. For vibrations too, since you do have a V6 engine instead of a small displacement, maybe 2-liter, 4-cylinder turbocharged gasoline engine, it's just smooth too. Even at idle, even at startup, you barely feel any vibrations. And finally, for the harshness, it is simply superb. Given the long wheelbase of this car and with a suspension system that is erring towards the comfort side of things, it just soaks up all the bumps. Even if you're driving this on C5, the truck lane, on EDSA's like innermost lane where there's a lot of potholes, you can barely feel them. Steering feel is also pretty good. It's light in the city, it firms up on the highway, and you can also configure it. So you have like normal mode, you have light mode, and you have like a heavier steering setup since it is an electronically assisted power steering system. Usually when you have American cars, or Jeep in particular, like with the Wrangler and the Gladiator, they have the numbest steering in the world with a huge dead spot. But for this one, it is still proper sharp. It's not sporty, but there's enough feedback to kind of know where your front tires are pointing. But what isn't good about the steering is the atrocious turning radius. Yes, I know that a long car will have a big turning radius, but also probably because it has an all-wheel drive system, they are somewhat limited to the amount of wheel turn that it can do. So yes, the turning radius is pretty atrocious. So forget about 3-point turns. We're talking about 4 or 5-point turns with the Jeep Grand Cherokee L. And now, finally, the thing we have to talk about is fuel economy. And while I know a lot of Jeep buyers, especially in this class, will not really mind having a thirsty vehicle, just do know that this is a thirsty vehicle. Given that V6 engine, you can get around 4.9 kilometers per liter in the city, and honestly, that isn't too bad. But on the highway, you're only returning 13.5 kilometers per liter. And this is with only 2 of us inside the car. So imagine if you do load up this vehicle in all of those 7 seats with extra cargo at the back. So the Jeep Grand Cherokee is a very premium feeling vehicle, and it's comfortable and it's spacious and it's very powerful too. But now for pricing, you can get the Grand Cherokee L Limited for 5,490,000 pesos, which admittedly is a very steep price. But I think that for the people looking at this segment, honestly, price doesn't matter. And after all, this is a car that lets you own the Jeep brand without offending your significant other. At the same time, I think that it is a very important car for Jeep because not only are they now an upper premium car brand that's focused solely on off-roading, but this nameplate lets them truly be a luxury car brand too.